All right, Genesis chapter 20. Let's call this one regular. Why? Because for some reason it reminded me of the whole concept of being a regular at a restaurant. And it further reminded me of this. Here, sometimes we talk about the whole concept of how a single act done by two different people can bring two different results, depending upon the motives of those individuals. And being a regular seem to link into that in this way. If I go into a restaurant where I'm a regular, maybe to the point where the folks could even order for me, my ordering is just a formality because they know me just that well. If I leave out of that restaurant that day and don't leave a tip, when I'm usually accustomed to leaving a tip, the folks there might not think much of it. They might even begin to give reasons for me. Maybe Marcus was in a hurry. You don't know what was going on. Maybe he was just forgetful, blah, blah, blah. I might not even have to defend myself. That might be how good the relationship is in a place where I'm a regular. However, if I go into a restaurant where I do not have that level of credibility and do the same thing, they might be like, who is this guy? And the next time I come back in the restaurant, they might be looking at me kind of funny. Or even if in a place where I'm a regular, a stranger does the exact same thing, they might not be able to expect someone to be as understanding as they might be toward me. And why does that matter? Well, in Genesis chapter 20, what's going on is Abraham screwing up again with regard to telling the truth about who his wife actually is, because she is just that pretty, according to the biblical account. So he's already gotten Pharaoh's household in trouble in Egypt, and now he's getting Abimelech's household in trouble in much the same way, because he won't acknowledge that Sarah is his wife. And once again, a ruler takes her because of her beauty and gets his household all sorts of unsavory consequences. And so ultimately that ruler confronting Abram again, it's like, why'd you lie to me? But the weird thing this time is it's not the ruler's prayers that are able to get him out of trouble even after he makes it right with Abraham. After he makes it right with Abraham, Abraham actually has to pray to get this man out of trouble. Let's look at two passages that tell us exactly that. In verse 9, it's absolutely clear that Abraham's the one who's done wrong. Abimelech says that. In verse 9, you have done to me things that ought not be done. He's exactly right. He's not making excuses. He's basically calling Abraham out, and Abraham doesn't deny it. But the odd thing is at the end of the chapter, verse 17, then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and female slaves, so they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So why is this guy who did wrong the one who has to offer up the prayer that actually gets Abimelech healed? Well, it's because that man was still a regular in his relationship with God. And if you look at the larger context of the relationship of the Philistines to God, it wasn't good. They were people who typically kind of did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, as long as they could get away with it. And so ultimately, it doesn't say it in particular, but it does bring out this contrast. Over and over, preachers often try to encourage people to make sure you have a good relationship with God. And sometimes it just seems like Bible talk, but it's just like any other relationship. When you get a phone call from a friend who is in need, if it's somebody who only calls when they need money, oh, come on, you already know how you are going to feel about that call. But if it's somebody who you know you have a relationship with and they are in need, even if you're not inclined to give money or assistance, you're probably going to hear that call a little bit differently. And likewise, if you're going back to college, you've been away for a while. There are a lot of us who've gone back to school after years. I don't think any of us reasonably expected to go back to school on Monday and expect a degree by Friday. But in our prayer life, sometimes we expect things to turn around that quickly. We know for a fact God was an afterthought at best for us for years. But when we're in need, we pray and we want an answer that same day, much less by the end of the week. And so ultimately, we know if we can't walk into a college and expect the turnaround of a week on a degree, how much more humbly should we come back to God when we start offering up prayers in the midst of a broken relationship where we completely ignore him in the meantime? And so that's why this story in Genesis chapter 20 is so important to me right now, and reminded me of places in which I'm a regular, because in situations where you are healthy and constant in your relationship with God, you can understand the kind of mercy that Abraham is getting, even lying repeatedly in this circumstance, not habitually, but 2 times in quick succession wasn't enough to close God's ear to him. But the fact that Abimelech, even though he was innocent in this circumstance, the fact that he was innocent in this one occasion wasn't enough to immediately reopen God's ear to him. So understand this. We need to be honest about our relationship with God and understand why people are encouraging us to be regular with him.